Wall Street Unplugged looks beyond the regular headlines heard on mainstream financial media to bring you unscripted interviews and breaking commentary direct from Wall Street right to you on Main Street.
How's it going out there? It's December 12th. I'm Frank Curzio, host of the Wall Street Unplugged podcast, where I break down the headlines and tell you what's really moving these markets. So I just booked my trip to the Consumer Electronics Show. It took me like 3 hours to book since flights are tough to get. I think I'm leaving like 4 in the morning. I got to wake up 4 in the morning. Airport at 4:30. Coming back at 1 a.m. Tough to get hotels. How to control prices. I'll get to that in a minute. If you're not familiar with the Consumer Electronics Show, it's one of the largest conferences in the world. At least pretty much close to it, with over 4,000 technology companies presenting their new ideas, their products, everything they're going to release in 2019. It's not even necessarily technology companies. I mean, you see the post office there, which amazes me with how much money they're losing, that they fund, new technologies and spending $1 million on these big booths, when you're losing billions and stuff like that. But it is infrastructure companies, there's housing companies. I mean, it's gotten that big. Car companies, all the cars, it's amazing because it's right around the Detroit Auto Show, and a lot of them, display some of their best cars at the Consumer Electronics Show because it's so big now. It's amazing. And it's held in Vegas, every year on the second week in January, and over 120,000 people are expected to attend. It's always over 100,000, at least for the past 5 years. So I've been attending this thing for, I think it's going to be my 7th year. I have a whole system that I do. I take executive tours with a company, which, cost a little bit, but they're like 90 minutes long. Where I'll have an expert that's, been doing executive tours at the Consumer Electronics Show for like 15, 20 years or something like that. And they walk you through the conference. They give you headsets. And they also, take you to the Sands Expo, which is another hotel that has, a casino hotel that has a lot of companies present there. I think there's actually like 5 hotels, casinos now that participate in this. They'll have companies and exhibitors and stuff. The people doing these tours know everything about every trend, tons of statistics they're going to give you. They'll tell you what's hot, what's expected to be hot, the latest companies that really just got into the conference, which, you want to see, and usually like in little spots and stuff because, hey, we got new technology. It really looks good, and we want to just get in there. And people overlook this because they see these massive booths by Qualcomm, Intel, all the big companies, major companies. But it's really huge. I mean, some of the topics are going to be hot this year are AI, smart homes, 5G. But it really is incredible when you get there. And it's just so overwhelming to the point where these executive tours, it's almost like a Cliff Note version of what's important and what's not. And it's not just saying, hey, these guys are good, this is a great trend. They tell you what's really not good trends, where wearables, 3D printing over the past couple of years, kind of, trends that are dying out a little bit. So it helps you really focus on what you need to know, what you don't need to know when you come back, or when I come back. And, it's just things like that are incredibly useful to me, to you. I mean, great ideas. 'Cause I don't know if any of you actually attended CES. I suggest every one of you go with, your spouse, go with your family. I mean, not young kids or anything, but there's something there for everybody. It's just freaking so overwhelming. And there's companies everywhere. For me, I'm talking to major tech companies, small tech companies, but everybody's there. Outside of Apple, almost every technology company's there, which is kind of ironic, right? Because they're the biggest or one of the biggest. I think Microsoft is the largest company in the world right now based on market cap. But it's ironic because there's so many companies, thousands probably, selling products for iPhones, tablets, Macs, yet Apple isn't there. They've been there, I think, a few years, but they haven't been there the last couple of years. When you walk in, there's drones, robots, crazy people running around. You have booth babes. If you're a male and a millennial, look that term up. You'll probably enjoy it. They have displays everywhere. They have keynote speeches from the biggest CEOs in the industry. Celebrities pitching products, famous athletes. So it's easy to get lost and distracted at the event, and also easy to miss some of the great things that are being presented because you really can't see everything. This place is so huge. It's 2.5 million net square feet of space. Now, to put that in perspective, that's the size of the Empire State Building, which is over 100 floors. So you put that in perspective, imagine going to the Empire State Building, and there's 40 companies presenting on each floor that you're looking at. You go up to the second floor, there's 100. That's how big, that's how much space they use. That's how many companies. It's incredible. But I attend it every year because I always find great stock ideas for my subscribers and my listeners. And I also have great contacts there, like I just explained, not just through taking executive tours, but people I see there all the time who've helped me tremendously. And you need that help, guys. You think you can do everything by yourself, but networking is so important. So I love doing this podcast. I love hearing from you as well. All your different industries. I mean, you're going to know things about different industries than I do. I can give you the fundamentals, analyze the balance sheet, tell you where I think the stock's going, but getting that inside perspective, that's the difference between finding real big winning stocks and avoiding some of the ones that are terrible. When I have guys like you out there dealing with some of the companies I'm recommending, or some of you work for these companies, Fortune 500 companies, even Dow components. It's pretty cool. But it's a huge help to have that network because they helped me find trends early, like cloud in 2012. Yes, cloud was, wasn't really mainstream in 2012. People didn't really understand it in 2012. But for me, just going through this and talking to one of the leading engineers from Ericsson, they had a big booth there. And once you get past those, booth babes who know basically their name and the company that they're working for, other than that, don't ask them another question. They have no idea. But you get to speak to top-level employees. These are the guys working the booths at this event. And the fact that I have a press badge, since I have a pretty popular podcast, thanks to you crazy people who continue to listen to me every week, which I love. But I get really good access to press events, different companies, high-level employees. They want to talk to me because every company wants attention. They want press. They want you to talk about it. And this is a great event for that. I mean, I've attended biotech conferences. They don't tell you anything. Talk to a guy in a room, and they're like, yeah, don't say anything. But not that they're giving you anything insight, but they're just like, well, this is what we're looking at. But it's just hard to get meetings. Here's an event that they want you to take pictures. They want you to send them through social media. They want to talk to you. They want to get their product noticed. There's so many people cover the event. Just put top 10 products CES 2018. Every major newspaper. I'm not just talking about financials. Everything. U.S. Today, Washington Post, CNET, Gadget, Tech Gadget, everything. Wired. You go to all these magazines. You're going to see all about their top 10 products and stuff. It's such a big event, such a media event. That's pretty cool. So that's why you really need help knowing where to go, not getting lost in this. And, it's a formula for me that's worked tremendously. But that engineer from Ericsson, he's told me, well, actually, I asked him, I said, hey, what inning are we in when it comes to cloud? It's been around. He said, we're not even in the first inning. Not even close. And just started talking to him more and more about it, and he was dead on, right? Hey, look what we are now with cloud. 2013, I saw Cisco's the CEO, John Chambers, his speech when he coined the term Internet of Everything, where he said, conservatively, 50 billion devices are going to be connected to the internet by 2020. And I remember listening to that saying, this guy's out of his mind. He's nuts. I mean, Cisco wasn't really doing that good back then. Now they're doing great. Because Chambers saw the future. And for me, I was thinking, wow, this guy's crazy. Having like tablets, phones. I mean, how many devices? He was thinking bigger in terms of cars, smart cities, wearables, gaming devices, toothbrushes are connected. Home surveillance cameras, every appliances. He said, everything that could be connected will be connected. Back then, it was very small. Today, there's 30 billion devices connected. It's going to meet his estimate by 50 million by 2020 because every new car, every appliance, lights, almost everything made for your home is going to be connected going forward, whether you use it or not. Learn about big data in 2013, 2014. Companies like Tableau Software, Splunk, Workday, Salesforce, which is, a combination of cloud, big data analytics, which, those two things go hand in hand. You want to store as much information as possible and find out how to analyze it to, better market to your customers, understand what they need, what they're looking at, what they want, and not waste your time giving them something that they're not interested in. That's what every business wants to do. In 2015, Apple announced, hey, you know what? We're going to release the watch. So big. But by going to the CES that year, I knew it was going to be a failure. In terms of the 36 million watches that CNET projected Apple's going to sell in its very first year. And I don't think there was estimates that were under 20 million. Some experts, industry so-called experts, predicted more than 40 million of these things are going to be sold in the first year. I think Apple sold something like 4 million watches in its first year, which Tim Cook never disclosed, still doesn't disclose, right? Units of watches because sales were so terrible, which is a little ironic, right? You just said the same thing about iPhones now. I mean, you want to tell everyone how much of your product you're selling, unit sales, you want when you're selling it. But when you're not selling it, you're like, for him to come out last quarter and say, well, we're not going to give you unit sales anymore. There's a reason why he did that with the watch. Because it wasn't selling that great. And guys, it's up to 45 million in total now. 45 million. That was estimates. Some people had those estimates in the first year. So it's 3.5 years total watch. If you back it out, analysts, looking at analyst estimates, stuff like that, it's around 45 million that were sold. You're looking at this? But again, that's 3.5 years, and a lot of these experts predicted they'll reach this in the very first year. But going to the CES, there was like 500 companies I saw offering wearable devices. It was a whole big section. And all these things were similar. It measured your heart rate, told you about your steps. I mean, Samsung connected to the internet without you needing to have your phone, which was kind of original back then. They connected to your email, but they were all kind of similar. There wasn't anything different. There's nothing. Nobody had like patents on anything to make it unique. It wasn't like, well, I need this particular one. And don't get me wrong. I mean, Apple's selling, for anyone in the world selling 4 million watches for whatever price tag was, 400 back then, maybe a little bit more, it is a monster business. But Apple, when you're generating 200 billion in sales, it's not going to make a dent. It's an iPhone company. And 65% of the sales still come from Apple. Back then, it was even more. But by seeing these companies and so many, millions of people already bought wearables for hundreds of dollars before Apple released theirs. They were late to the party in that trend. But there's no way that Apple's going to come close to meeting those estimates. It was something I knew by being in the field. I was telling my subscribers, listeners to short GoPro since I saw, I want to say 25, probably more like 50 companies. Remember, this is a global event for companies all over globally. A big presence in China and Asia and Latin America here. So I saw so many 360-degree cameras that were going on sale for half the price of GoPro or about to go on sale, right? Because these old products are going to be released going forward. Didn't make sense. Wow, yeah, I thought, GoPro owned this market. No, you have these cameras, and they showed the display and them awesome technology and just, 4D and everything. I'm like, wow, these guys, why am I going to buy a GoPro when I could buy this half the price? And GoPro was trying to do, get people online and do some kind of community thing with social media and stuff like that. They were kind of just losing their way a little bit. I mean, it was a great product. Don't get me wrong. People use it. But, we're talking about the stock here, and they had significant competition coming in. They didn't really, there wasn't anything exclusive to a GoPro camera compared to the ones that I saw. I also saw the short Fitbit. I mean, same reason as Apple, just too much competition. Low barriers of entry into this space. Anyone can right there. I mean, seriously, it was, maybe a dozen companies there went to like 50, 7,500. And then now there's literally, I would say, close to 1,000 companies in wearables that are going to be there. And it's incredible how many choices you have. All the regular watch companies now have these wearables that are digital and stuff like that and have different faces on it. But again, what's so different from all of them? Yes, Apple, you're connected to their whole system. I get it. But it's important to understand these trends when you're just hearing about Fitbit and GoPro, when you're not seeing all these other things that are out there. When you're in the field, you see it. You know why the short sellers are hitting these guys. You know why these stocks have gotten destroyed. I'm going to tell you about virtual reality after getting into demo Oculus Rift because of my press pass. Most amazing things I ever experienced, putting that headset on and just being there for like 5 minutes and going through all the sequences and looking around. I mean, they tape me and I'm like moving around and ducking and so you have no idea. It was just unbelievable. I think virtual reality, more important, augmented reality. So augmented reality is combining real life and computers. So you can watch live sporting events. You can be in your home, put the headset on, and you're sitting in the first row of a live event watching it. So it's like you're virtually in the stadium sitting front row. I know it's crazy stuff, hard to envision. Start researching. It's incredible, but you're going to see a lot of that. Maybe another big theme at the CES this year. And Oculus was interesting because that was like 3 years ago when I did that. And they didn't attend the Consumer Electronics Show for the past 2 years. Oculus is owned by Facebook. But now their technology, their products. I mean, I do own an Oculus. It's incredible. It's an older version, and now they have newer versions. I don't know if they're going to attend this event, but I am seeing them market a lot more, so I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, they probably took a little bit of a break to work more on that technology, try to see how they can get this mainstream because it is incredible. I was introduced to esports 2015, 2016. Man, look at Fortnite. If you never heard of Fortnite, if you have a kid there, if you have children, you know Fortnite, especially if they're anywhere from probably 12 years old to whatever, 30, 40 years old. It's incredible to see esports. And just look at that trend online when they're filling up. I mean, the LA Forum and Madison Square Garden to watch these people play against each other in these massive gaming events. But if you look at Activision, EA, Take-Two, I mean, look how these stocks performed over the past few years. And a lot of these guys are just starting to get into this trend. More recently, I told you about Intel, one of the biggest presenters each year at the Consumer Electronics Show, which always did a horrible job. And from 2012, 2016, when you walk into that main area at the conference center, and one of the first companies is Intel that you see, and just those years, it's just behind so many amazing trends. And then in 2017, it changed. It totally transformed the company. And one of the best booths, crowded, jammed, getting into all the new technologies, AI, 5G, talking about this a year or two ago. I remember coming back telling you to buy this stock. It was a lot cheaper than where it is today, which is like $47, $48. I recommend it again for subscribers. I think we're up a little bit on it last year again. And we're up a lot more on it, but the market did come down. But we got in at a very good price, so doing well. When you look at the CES, it's a great event to find new ideas. Yeah, I do have my network, which I rely on. It helps me find lots of these new trends. Send me statistics on current trends, which lets me know what stage a lot of these things are in based on CapEx spending, how much money is being poured into this industry, based on sentiment. Again, this network also lets me know, what trends are starting to phase out, which I mentioned earlier, simply by knowing the amount of companies in the industry presenting this year compared to last year, how much floor space they're taking up. Since every industry at the CES, they're broken out in different areas. So if you look at 3D printing, it was probably 4 or 5 times the size 3 years ago. And what happened with 3D printing, which is an amazing technology, is they can't get it to the consumer. They can't get consumers to use it. It's still too complicated. There will be a day where you don't have to send anything anymore. You could just do 3D printing and you'll have one and someone across the world will have one. If you want to send something that's really cool for them to Christmas, you could do it through 3D printing. There will be a time. You could actually do that right now. It's incredible. You got to see the amazing stuff, but it's not on the consumer level yet. So now that Squarespace shrunk tremendously over the past couple of years, and that allowed me to come back and say, listen, avoid these stocks. You've seen demand come down. A lot of these guys have debt, and those stocks have gotten, destroyed. But those 3D companies, we'll see this year. And maybe it's a good time. I don't know. Let's see new technology. They have to get it to the consumer, but these are things that you see. I can tell you something, guys. Do not hate something forever. You should only hate a stock. It's not that you hate the stock. You hate the price it's trading at. Because so many people make that mistake where they'll look at a stock and be like, I just hate this stock, and it's totally overvalued. There is a price that you should pay for almost anything. I mean, look, you might say, I hate Mercedes. I hate them. I'll never pay $100,000 for a car. But if someone gave it $20,000, you would buy it. I'm not too crazy about it, but $20,000, yeah, I'd buy it. That's how you have to look at it with stocks. Well, you don't want to hate 3D printing and say, this trend is terrible, I got destroyed. You want to take a fresh look at it. Because right now it's so hated. If they're able to find a way to get into the consumers' homes, get for people buying these things on the consumer level, these stocks are going to go up tremendously from these prices. They're probably down 70, 80% from their highs. But you find these things by being in the field. Looking at different trends taking place within these trends, like cloud, big data, gaming, AI. And even you get to look at startups, which you'll find at the Sands Expo. Hundreds of new companies presenting brand new products and venture capitalists. I mean, they have a whole entire section. It's like the whole basement part in the Sands Expo where, a lot of these companies will get up there and present their product, but you see them all over the place. It's incredible. It's international companies from all over the world. I had a guess it's probably over 1,000 in there. It's called Eureka Park. Definitely, if you go there, take a look at that. It's just fascinating to talk to some of these young entrepreneurs anyway. And some of them do have fascinating ideas. But it's an event everyone should attend at least once. For me, I do it a different way because I'm looking for ideas. I avoid all the confusion, the nonsense. Maybe That's the reason why you listen to the podcast, right? To factor out all the noise, all the terrible things going out there and saying, hey, this is what you have to focus on. This is how I do the Consumer Electronics Show. It's the big event, something that I enjoy, but it is a lot of work, a ton of work, actually. Now, the bad news. If you are going to attend, make sure you book your trip early. I mean, Vegas completely rips you off during this week. Hotels, if you're booking on Expedia, Priceline, anywhere else, hotels.com, whatever, it's already extremely expensive, along with the flights, which I told you earlier, they're just hard to get flights because I booked I think a week ago. Should have booked earlier. It's been busy lately. But hotels now charge Expedia price, and they charge you an extra $40 to $60 a night. So when you book, it used to be, okay, I booked this price and that's it. No. When you check out, you're going to get a bit. Now, I'm there for 5 days. I'm going to be there for a while. The $46 adds up. And that's just, again, that's not included booking fees, not yet, on any of the online travel sites, but they do add up. I remember this is like 2 years ago I got hit with one of these, and I started asking. Now it's normal. So every year, New York is doing this as well. San Francisco, a lot of big areas during prime time, charging you extra. These hotels are charging you extra, squeezing more money out of you. It's kind of like your deductible. Remember we used to go to the doctor and you didn't have to pay anything? Now you have to pay $20, $30 copay. Got to be deductible here, deductible there. That's how the hotel industry is turned into. But I remember 2 years ago asking about this fee, and I stayed at a hotel, and it was a hotel I usually stay at. I don't stay at anymore. I said, you charge me extra $30 per night. I didn't see this. It says hotel fees. What is this? And she's like, well, it's for your internet and refrigerator. I said, well, I don't need internet because I have my phone, and I can use the hotspot, get my computer, my laptop, and there's no refrigerator in my room. She's like, oh, well, it's also for parking. And I said, I don't have a car. And then she started to stutter a bit. And so I told her, I said, listen, just tell me it's the FU fee. And I respect you so much more than if you're making this crap up. I said, just tell me, just say, look, we're going to overcharge you. We got to charge you a BS fee. That's why when it comes to our products, when we say it's a maintenance fee, it really is a maintenance fee. If you're going to have a lifetime membership and we plan to offer that for 10 years, we have to charge a little bit of a fee, which, some people are like, wow, you're charging $19 for a lifetime fee annually. I'm like, well, that's how we have to make it work. There's a ton of things behind the scenes that go into producing our products that are going to continue for the next 10 years. It's the only way we can offer it to you, which we disclose right before you. But people are like, oh, I didn't know. No, it's not like one of those fees. We're totally open with it. I'm talking about they're hiding these fees, and it's crazy. And just tell us up front, look, we're going to overcharge you. We're going to screw you. I mean, it's so much better than you just, parking fee or I really didn't have a refrigerator in my room. They charged me a refrigerator fee. Like, are you crazy? But just be prepared because everything is super expensive. We charge you on everything and anything, including 20% tips on bills without letting you know. So make sure you look at everything. You're going to fee to death, taxi, Ubers, everything goes up 20, 30% that week. And as much as we love to complain, there's nothing you can do about it. You don't have to go if you don't want to, but for me, it's worth it because I always find lots and lots of ideas. We generate so much money for subscribers to some of the companies that I've recommended just from the Consumer Electronics Show over the last 7 years. Amazing returns, getting the stories, getting there first, learning about these technologies before anybody else. So it's worth it for me. Anyway, really looking forward to this trip, which is from January 7th to the 11th. I have a ton of ideas to share with you, listeners, and lots of actionable ideas or new stock picks to share with all of my paid subscribers. Also, and I mean this, be sure to check out Twitter at Frank Curzio. Also, my Curzio Research Facebook page. I know when I say a lot of people are like, I'm not really on Facebook. There's still a lot of people on Facebook and watch, but I'm going to be shooting a lot of live videos through these platforms. I'll be talking to executives, more important, sampling new technologies and products. Giving you early access to everything since I do have a press badge where I'm invited to numerous media events before the CES actually opens their doors to the public. Just be sure to follow me. Follow the social media. Again, Curzio Research, a Facebook page, also on Twitter. The handle is at Frank Curzio. And it's fun. Every time I do this and post these live videos, I think the last 2 years, it's kind of entertaining. Since some of the stuff that I'm trying and sampling is pretty insane, I'm sure you're going to make fun of me while I'm sampling some of these crazy technology products and gadgets at the CES. But that's the only way to know if the product is good, if it's scalable, if it's going to go viral, which usually results in a lot of these stocks rocketing higher as they release these products for 2019. It's a lot of fun, a lot of amazing stuff that every time I post some of this stuff, and again, real live videos, great things, and they're like, holy cow, I never saw that before. It's really, really cool stuff. Things where you can use your brain to talk to computers and move different objects on computer screens. I mean, it's some of this stuff is out there. It's really cool. But again, if you want real-time access, go to my social media platforms. And once I get back, talk about all this stuff. So really cool stuff to look forward to just after the holidays. Now, the past few months, I'm talking about security tokens, how we're planning to launch our own security token offering for Curzio Research. We're calling that token Curzio Equity Owners, where it's going to give accredited investors an equity stake in Curzio Research. Also going to be paying an annual dividend, at least 3 years. What does that mean? Well, think about all the other newsletters you subscribe to. Now it's not only investing in their newsletters or products, you're going to be investing in our company, right? First time in the industry, you're going to be able to do that. When you invest in an underlying company at very early stages, a financial newsletter company, as we start to grow Curzio Research, hopefully into one of the largest financial publishers in America. That's our goal. So I'm sure you heard me talk about this a ton of times, about security tokens, the industry. It's one of the biggest potential opportunities I've seen in my 25-year career, to the point where I'm not BSing because I'm going all in, risking my company, my reputation on this trend. I truly believe it's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar market in 10 years. It just makes so much sense. But you heard from me already. You know how excited I am. So excited I'm launching a security token to raise money, to grow our company. You know that already. But I wanted to bring in one of the leading authorities and people in this industry, who's also going in on digitalized tokens. That's Carlos Domingo, the founder and CEO of Securitize, who we're partnered with to bring our token to market. Securitize runs one of the biggest end-to-end platforms. They're second to none in the industry. That's why we're using them. So they're helping companies who want to tokenize their assets, with all the back office logistics, token creation, easy to use platform for investors, handle the compliance issues, everything. Unbelievable. And since we've been working with Securitize and really talking to them over the past couple of months, the company's been growing like gangbusters. Because just last month, they received a $12.7 million investment from some of the biggest crypto companies who are focused on security tokens. Includes Blockchain Capital, Coinbase Ventures, who's going to start trading security tokens on their platform next year. If you have a Coinbase account, they only trade like the top 4 tokens. Maybe 5 now, since the fork in Bitcoin Cash. Japan and Latin American venture firms invested in this, and also Ripple invested in Securitize. Those are the people that came in for this financing. It's a clear endorsement of 2 things. One, Securitize is going to be easily the premier end-to-end solution company for the security token industry. And more important, which is 2, the security token megatrend is here. Okay, it's not if it's going to happen. It's here. It's right now. Companies are beginning to tokenize assets like crazy. If you look at the news and Google, you're going to see it. Andy Warhol just tokenized a painting. You're looking at some large hotel chains tokenizing their real estate and hotels. It's here. It's now. One of the largest movie producers in the world. Now you're going to be able to finance movies in Hollywood. Again, look a lot of this stuff up. It's all out there. It's really great stuff. So it is here. It is now. And this is when you want to try to get into this trend. So in a minute, I'm going to interview Carlos. This way you can get a different opinion on the industry. Yes, he's in the industry. Yes, you heard from me. But these are the people that I'm learning from. This is part of my network that I want to share with you. You're going to see why I'm so excited about this incredible trend. And a quick tease, because Carlos is not going to paint the picture that security tokens or digital assets, they're going to take over the world. You're going to hear some dark, crazy, stupid predictions like that. No. It's just a realist picture of why this industry makes so much sense, to where small, mid-cap, even large companies, most of those who own illiquid assets like commercial real estate, art, collectibles, are likely going to tokenize their assets in the future. Represents a great opportunity for individual investors. So I don't want to give everything away in terms of what we're going to cover. So let's get to my interview with Carlos Domingo, founder and CEO of Securitize, right now. Carlos, thanks so much for joining us on Wall Street Unplugged.
Hi, Frank. Thanks for the invite.
Well, listen, as an entrepreneur, you've been a part of lots of successful tech startups in numerous countries, right? There's a lot of research on you, especially, before we started to work with you guys, and, very happy with our partnership. What attracted you to the security token industry, which is now they call the digital token industry, to where, you launch your company Securitize, and, maybe if you can talk a little bit about, what a security token is, since there's a lot of smart people listening to us right now that are just learning about this market for the very first time, since it's relatively new.
Good. So what attracted me initially was the possibility of basically tokenizing, create a digital representation of an asset on the blockchain and provide, automated compliance, management of the cap table and eventually liquidity. We started with a project of tokenizing a venture capital fund called Spice VC. And as you know, the VC industry is actually a very small asset class precisely because of the lack of liquidity, because not everyone can actually afford to invest on a fund that, you're not going to get any money back for like 7 to 10 years. So the fact that you could, create this digital representation of, in this case, the LP interest of the fund and put it on the blockchain and provide liquidity was what attracted us at the beginning to start the project. And this is how Securitize was born initially.
Now, since you started this thing, I mean, the demand that you've seen, I guess last year, when do you start believing that you wanted something big? You're a day behind Securitize, and what made you think it could be huge? Because where you are right now, we won't even talk about where you are right now. But when did you realize, like, holy cow, this is something that's really, really big?
So we started before summer 2017, and at that time, the blockchain industry was very much focused on ICE and regulated ICOs and utility tokens. And even though we felt that security tokens and asset-backed tokens are going to be a big thing, there was really not much interest in the industry, and it felt very lonely. And I think there were a couple of moments that changed everything. First is when the SEC issued the DAO report and started saying that all these things are securities and therefore should be treated as securities. But more importantly, I think towards the end of last year, there was a number of people that started discussing not about how security tokens can make ICO legal, but how security tokens is a better way to provide digital representations of securities on a technology platform like the blockchain, which will solve a lot of the inefficiencies of the capital market today. And at that point in time, this is when we decided to span out the platform we've developed from our own fund into Securitize, because we really saw the opportunity and we thought this was going to grow quite a lot.
No, it definitely makes sense. And you brought up regulation. Let's talk about that a little bit, because when it comes to crypto, say the diehards in the industry, the crypto people, regulation is like the devil to them, right? They hate it. But at the end of the day, I mean, people need to know their money is safe. People who they need to know if there's people taking advantage of investors. I mean, they know they have to go to jail. You need this stuff in order to have a market that scales, right? There has to be rules. Why is regulation so important to the scalability of this new market, security tokens? And someone like you that's a leader in this market now, right, in cryptocurrency market, do you believe this is something that we really need?
Yeah, I think regulation is not necessarily bad. At the end of the day, the regulators are there to protect the investors, especially the retail investors. So that's the job, and I think that's what they should be doing. Of course, an excess of regulation could, undermine innovation. So I think there is a fine line between regulating and protecting investors versus, stopping innovation. But regulation overall is going to bring, credibility and legitimacy to the market. So we definitely think this is necessary. We also think that the regulators need to be mindful in how they regulate, so it doesn't prevent innovation from flourishing and new things from happening. And in the case of securities, we're in a place which, a lot of the regulation that today the countries apply, especially here in the US, is actually quite old. It comes from the 30s. So a lot of the things probably are not, suitable for today's market. And then the other problem we find is that a lot of the regulation doesn't take into account, the things that blockchain can do. They're not designed for this new technology. So there's things like, central depositories and things like that for securities, which disappear with blockchain, and that in some countries in Europe, for instance, the regulators still, mandates to use it when it's really not necessarily anymore. Once you have blockchain, you have transparency about who holds securities and how they're transferred, and you have instant settlement and things like that.
You brought up the time period 1930s, and I could tell you if anyone listened to this, and before 1930s, it was safe. It was kind of like a crypto market type thing. The stock market was coming out. It was all crazy. And then people started doing shady things, taking advantage of it. And then we had the Depression. And then if you look at 1934, guys, and just pull up a chart of the S&P 500, it's straight up since then, since the SEC was created. I'm not saying that they don't overregulate or whatever, but when people got the feel and know that, hey, I'm putting my money in an account that I know it's safe, that I know it's insured, that I know that I'm dealing with real people and no one's trying to steal anything, I guess I'll ask you this when it comes to regulation, because you said it needs to be regulated, but hopefully they don't go overboard. For me as a security guy, I see them regulating it similar, even if they regulate similar to stocks. It's going to work. What are some of the things in regulation that maybe have you concerned that they may overregulate? Or is there anything you're looking at saying like, well, hopefully they don't do this? Because even if they just regulate it kind of like the way stocks are regulated, this is a market that's going to scale incredibly because it just makes sense.
Correct. So I think that some countries, like let's say in China, the approach to regulation they take is just completely ban certain things, which I think is not good. I think in the US so far the regulators have not tried to prohibit things, but they've tried to regulate it and protect the investors, especially when it comes to ICOs. In the case of security tokens, it's a bit easier in the sense that at the end of the day, they're digital securities. So the regulation already exists. It's not like crypto, which is a new asset class that people didn't know, whether it was a commodity or a currency or what it was. So in the case of security tokens, they're just digital representations of existing securities. And therefore you can, for the time being, just follow the existing, securities laws and comply with them without having to wait for the regulator to bring any new laws.
No, it definitely makes sense. Now, one other concern, even that I get, right, because we're working with you guys, we're going to launch a security token. We're really excited about it. Liquidity, right, which is an issue. People say, well, this is going to provide liquidity to, say, illiquid assets, whether it's real estate, art, collectibles, even smaller companies. But not a lot of exchanges right now. Talk about the development, which I know you are tied in and you're connected so much into this industry, even much, much more than me. What are you seeing right now where, you could address that issue? Because if you look at institutions, especially institutions, but also individual investors, I mean, they're extremely worried about this risk to the point that on the institutional side, they're not going to invest unless this is a liquid market.
Correct. So liquidity is the big promise of this space that hasn't happened yet. So 2 weeks ago, the Open Finance, which is a security token marketplace based in Chicago, they open them in beta. They're now trading one token, Spice BC, and they're going to start trading some other tokens. But still, it's just one marketplace and still with limited, liquidity. I think this is what probably during 2019 has to change the most for this market to take off, which meaning many exchanges need to launch, not only in the US but in other jurisdictions to really fulfill the promise of liquidity for security tokens, which is, as I said, one of the most attractive features of this asset class.
Yes, I definitely agree. And I want to say this. I want to congratulate you first of all, because I don't know if everyone has seen this news, which is just a couple of weeks old. You received $12.7 million from investors to help grow Securitize into a global brand, right? So when I see this deal, I've seen a lot of deals take place, right, in this industry. Deals here, deals there. I haven't seen a deal like yours when it comes to the high-profile investors that went in on this round. I mean, we would talk about very, very big people, Coinbase Ventures, Ripple, Japanese institution, Latin America. These are like the cream of the crop. I feel like it's like Warren Buffett, Carl Icahn investing in your company. What does this mean to you? Because it seems like these guys understand that, hey, Securitize is doing the right thing. This is the platform that we're backing. I mean, how does this change your company after this investment?
Well, it hasn't changed it yet, but it's definitely going to change it because, as you said, we've been very fortunate to have very big, names from the industry investing in the company and kind of validating our vision and our progress so far in terms of helping create this security token industry. And I think that for us during this round, it was not just about bringing money to the company, but it's about bringing the right set of partners that can help us develop on the corporate side, but also on the regional side. You mentioned that we have an executive from Latin America, which they're very keen on helping us expanding there. We got global brains from Japan, which again this is a market that we're looking very carefully. So I think that we've been very fortunate to bring this set of investors, and it's definitely going to change the company in the sense that we're kind of validated in the market. If anyone had concerns about us and about our long-term stability and things like that, today this is obviously not a topic of discussion anymore.
Nah, it's great stuff. Now, for me, I know this because I'm, we're partners. I'm dealing with you, and you guys helped me tremendously, launch a security token. But say if there's somebody listening to this and says, you know what, I have a company. We don't want it to, we're too small a list on a major exchange. If we do a private placement, there's going to be a very long lockup period, like that liquidity event for investors where, you got to wait for an IPO or until your company gets acquired. This is a lot sooner. So if someone's interested, could you take us through the process of Securitize? Like, why should they use you? What is the process? And again, you probably used to talk to so many people that are familiar with this market, but there's a massive opportunity there where when everybody that I'm explaining this to in my contacts I built for the past 25 years, I already have 2-3 people who are very like leaders in their industry that want to do security tokens because they love the idea. How do they go about doing it when they call you? Could you explain that detail? Because I'm sure people listening to this are going to be like, wow, this makes sense. Maybe I want to partner with you guys. Why would they use Securitize, and how does that process work?
So the first thing you need to know is you need to understand what you want to do, right? So what type of security you want to sell, what type of asset you want to securitize, and what are the reasons why you choose security tokens, which, they boil down to like 3. One is a different way of doing capital formation, automation of management of all the investors and investor relationship, and the final one, as we discussed before, is liquidity. In that case, when a company engages with us, I think we usually tell them what is the percent to, and we obviously don't provide everything, but we have a list of all the steps they need to take. I think that the first one is, as I said, understand what they want to securitize and what is the offer. Get all the legal documents in place. This is it's like a private placement, so you have to have some sort of information memorandum with all the disclosures for investors, subscription agreements to sign, the security that you're purchasing, etc. Then after that, we basically will set up an instance of the platform and create, a place where investors can land there, can check the offering, can register, and then can pass all the process to determine whether they're suitable for the investment. So basically KYC, AML, and accreditation, depending on which jurisdiction they are. Once the investors have done that, then they can send money, and eventually, when the process finishes, we will then issue the security token on the blockchain using what we call the digital securities protocol, which is basically a compliance protocol that will guarantee that this token, once issued on the blockchain, continues being compliant, which is a critical thing for security tokens, because these are not just tokens that can be freely, moved peer-to-peer from wallet to wallet, because these are securities. And then after that, we continue managing the security. What people don't realize is the issuing the security is the first step for a long journey of this security being in the market. You proactively managing the investors, integrating with the exchanges and listing the security token for liquidity, and we provide the services also to reconstruct the cap table after trading has happened, so the issuer always knows who holds the security in case they need to communicate with them, conduct a proxy vote, issue a dividend, whatever. So that's kind of like the end-to-end process. And I would say, why people want to work with Securitize. I think we've been, longer in the market with a working product than most people. We have a lot of experience because we've issued a number of security tokens already, and we're conducting several other STOs. We have both let's say the platform for the issuance process and the lifecycle management, as well as all the protocols on the blockchain. And we have been fortunate enough that we've managed to then integrate with a number of exchanges like Open Finance that are already launched, but many others that are in the process of launching. So we can then seamlessly provide liquidity for these security tokens once they're issued with our platform.
Yeah, Carlos, I talked to a lot of people in this industry who raise money in ICOs, utility tokens, and they found out what I was doing in this process, and I update them, and they said, wow, I wish we would have used Securitize as someone like that, because they tried to hire their own developers and own tokens, and it's been a nightmare for a lot of them, to be honest with you. And one of the things you just mentioned, which I think is extremely important for people who don't understand, is you said compliance protocol. How important is that? Because you're doing all the end-to-end work behind the scenes, but that's important because say everything's successful, re-raise, we bid our soft cap. Now, like you said, now we have a token that's going to launch a year from now. Our job over that year is really to go to exchanges, right? So when you go to exchanges, the fact that you're doing all of this, a compliance protocol, why is that so important for when I'm talking to exchanges compared to someone that's not using a service like yours and trying to do it on their own?
So yes, if you first you need to have some sort of transfer restrictions built into the token. That's the most important thing, because these tokens represent securities. They are digital representation of security, and therefore they cannot be freely traded. There's a number of restrictions depending on the type of exemptions that you file. and you're done. Like in the US, the first year there's a lockup and the investors cannot trade. In other countries, there's all the restrictions. There cannot be a flow back from international investors back into the US, et cetera, et cetera. So all these things have to be baked into the protocol to ensure that this is, controlled. And then the most important thing, you could choose to try to do your own protocol and bake these restrictions in. But I think the main problem would be that then, the exchanges need to somehow communicate and integrate with this protocol. First, to check for the trades, whether they can do it in a compliant way. And second, because they need to be able to send the investor information back into the platform for the issuer to reconstruct the cap table. So if you're going to do something proprietary, you have to go through the process of convincing the exchanges to integrate your technology. And my view is that exchanges will integrate a number of protocols, but they're not going to integrate, a different one for every token that's out there, because otherwise it will be a nightmare for them in terms of maintenance and integration. So I think that picking one of the, Securitize or other companies out there that have already a presence in the space, a number of projects ongoing, and tokens either launched or being launched, I think it guarantees you that you will get integrated with the exchanges for liquidity.
Now, where do you see, and thank you so much for explaining that, because it's so important, right? Sometimes we take for granted that everybody knows what we know, but there's a lot of people out there learning about this for the first time. So I definitely appreciate it. Where do you see this market maybe 12 months from now? What are you hearing out there in terms of, exchanges being launched, more tokens? I mean, what are you seeing in terms of demand yourself, your company? Again, I don't know what you could say and you can't say, but where do you see this industry in 12 months and maybe even 2-3 years from now? Because when I explain to my investors, they're like, is this really going to take over the markets? I'm like, no. I mean, the NASDAQ, Dow Jones, S&P going to be fine. But I really could see that, the over-the-counter market has 10,000 securities, and a lot of those are BS securities, but there's thousands of companies that are good. You look at real estate trillions that could be tokenized. You're looking at collectibles and art. We're seeing that Andy Warhol painting just tokenized. Where do you see this market demand-wise? What are your thoughts as someone that's, again, one of the leaders in the industry?
So first, I think that as we discussed, the main thing that I think is going to happen the next 12 months, which is going to increase the demand for security tokens, is going to be the launch of the exchanges. That's what everyone is waiting, and I think this is what's going to really change the market in the next 12 months. The other thing we've seen is the kind of like globalization of the industry. Like this started being if you want, a US centric thing. I think in the US, because of the SEC being more stronger into the recommendations about securities laws, people realized much earlier than in other countries that if they wanted to issue tokens, they had to issue securities and conduct STOs and ICOs. I think in other countries it's happening now, especially we see recently in Asia, picking up a lot of interest. And as you said, I don't think that this is going to replace Nasdaq, right? Or publicly traded securities. I think what has happened in the last 20 years is that the private markets have developed much more than the public markets, especially since the dot-com times. In the dot-com times, companies used to go public very early, and then investors had actually access to invest, let's say, on Amazon and Microsoft at the very beginning when the company was still on a growth trajectory. While now it's the opposite. Everything happens on the private markets. You look at companies like Uber, Airbnb, they don't go public until they're very big. So these private markets are very opaque, and investors don't have access to it. So I think that the security token industry is going to bring, open up opportunities for people to invest on private placements, which in the US in 2017, there were 40,000. So it's a very, very big market. And then other asset class that traditionally have been difficult to invest or that are like pretty, like you mentioned, art, collectibles, and real estate. Real estate is something we've seen recently, a lot of increase in demand, especially because there's been a couple of high-profile projects out there that everyone has read about it, and that has, opened up the eyes for many people about the opportunities of tokenizing real estate.
So we just covered a ton, which I really appreciate. And listen, I want to say this, and I'm going to end with this, Carlos. One, I want to thank you for coming on, because I know you're going out of the country for a couple of weeks. So I appreciate you doing this interview with us. But if I can give you any advice, because everywhere I look, and I always do homework on everybody I interview, you're doing conferences, you're traveling around the country, everything's all over the place. Just take a step back and make sure you enjoy this with your family, because you deserve it. It's nice to see the success, the investment that you guys have. And, I'm really looking forward to working with you guys, and really appreciate you doing this interview, bud.
Thank you very much, Frank. This is a great advice, and I always like to keep a balance between work and family, even though sometimes it's difficult because work absorbs you. but that was a great advice, and we're very happy to have you as a customer, and thank you very much for inviting me to the podcast.
Thanks, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Great stuff from Carlos. He was nice enough to do this interview with me just before he's heading out of the country for 2 weeks. He's very super busy. I really appreciate it. Over the next few months, I'm going to be bringing on industry experts, especially in this field for you. So you can learn more about this industry. I want to bring on critics about this industry. I mean, there's things that people have been asking me who are interested in investing in our security token and worry about liquidity concerns, which would guarantee liquidity by using Securitize to a company called Bancor, and that doesn't include the exchanges that we're going to be negotiating in our first year when we launch this token. If you're concerned about regulation, that's why I'm using some of the best lawyers in the entire industry who are very familiar talking to the SEC. We're going to make this almost like a publicly traded company, reporting financials just like it, be 100% compliant. I mean, that's our goal here. So there's going to be lots of questions. So I want to bring on not just people who are in this industry, but skeptics of it as well, because it's something I truly believe in and I want to hear. I mean, my whole company is going to be based on this. So I want to hear the critics. I want to hear what they have to say. This way we can address those concerns going forward and get ahead of those. That's important in any single industry, in anything that you do. But for Carlos, I love this interview. And as I always say, this podcast is about you. It's not about me. So let me know what you thought. Frank@CurzioResearch.com. That's Frank@CurzioResearch.com. And I want to stick to this subject really quick to end the podcast. Okay, it's a mini educational segment because there's a few things I noticed, even through that interview and people that I talk to in this industry, is they're very tech savvy. They understand blockchain, they understand tokenization, they're in this industry, they're talking to institutions. And it's just incredible for me because now I know all the jargon, I know all language in this, I understand it. But in order for this trend to go viral, just like anything else, just like cloud computing, just like big data analytics, so how many people understood cloud computing up to a couple of years ago? Now that you have it for Apple, you use it yourself, you understand it. But a lot of people are like, cloud, I don't get it. What do you mean, a cloud in the sky? I don't get it. So many people, an individual, did not get it. In order for something like this, security tokens to go viral, to be part of everyday life, investors, including institutions and mom and pop, they need to understand everything about this industry. And when I interview people and talk to people, there's sometimes, actually a lot of times, these tech geniuses, entrepreneurs, they speak like a geologist would speak if you go to a mining conference, which is a nightmare, right? Because they're going to talk about rocks. They're going to talk about 3D mapping. They're going to talk about you're just going to fall asleep. All I want to know is there a deposit there? How much money I can make on it? Is there a company close to there that's producing? How much is insider ownership? You need a CEO to go up there. You need someone in marketing to go up there because when the geologist does those presentations, you fall asleep. It's a freaking nightmare. And I tell everybody I know, very close friends with CEOs of so many different companies in the mining industry, the same thing. In a presentation, don't get your geologists up there. I respect geologists. They're brilliant. You need them to understand what's there and how big the potential is. But to explain that to everyday investor, which most of these people like you and I go into these conferences, they're not going to get anything that the guy's saying. And the same happens with technology and blockchain. There's so many people that don't understand this industry where a lot of the concepts are difficult to grasp. And that's where Curzio Research comes in. Because we want to bring this to mainstream, right? That's the whole goal of this company is to bring Wall Street to Main Street, to make everybody understand, to level a playing field, to have everyone in these situations and into these trends. At the same time, Wall Street gets into these trends, which these guys are always able to find ideas and talk in the right circles and stuff like that. Well, we have a network that's part of that circle now that helps us get into a lot of these things, trends, different ideas. But for us, we just created a site called Token Tracker, the website. We're going to send this to everyone interested in investing in our security token offering. So remember, you have to be an accredited investor to buy into the offering. That's just the way it is. I can't change that due to regulations. I mean, after we officially go free trading after 1 year, that everybody could buy it or anyone could buy it. Similar to a stock where the token's going to represent an equity stake. You get paid a dividend, but that's just the way it is. It's got to be accredited investors off the start. But I want to make sure every one of you or every investor gets familiar with this industry. And whether you're investing in our token, in the offering, if it goes free trading, or if you invest in other security tokens, I just want you to get familiar with this industry because it's truly one of the most disruptive trends I've seen in my career. You're looking at investment banks, regular banks, large companies. They're investing millions in this technology because it threatens the very foundation that companies were built on over 100 years ago. And don't think don't compare security tokens to what's going on in the current industry, which are utility tokens. These don't represent equity stake. A lot of these things are crashing. You're seeing Bitcoin come down. This is different. These tokens are going to be trading on your company, how good it's doing. Are you generating revenue, generating profits? Are you growing? Again, similar to a stock. So you look at the current market saying, wow, this is a bad time. No, there's a reason why that market is crashing, because it's opening the door to this new market, as a lot of utility tokens are trying to, they're not going to be able to, become securities, because they are securities. That's what the SEC listed them as. And once they do, they have to register them. They have to open up their books. You got to see where they spent all the money. A lot of these guys aren't going to do that because they're out of money. Okay, the only obligation for a utility token was to give you a token, not to tell you where the money's going, who's getting paid, what they're doing. Nothing. That's how crazy. Was it $6-7 billion was raised over last year on utility tokens? It's insane, but it's opened a door for this new technology. So we're going to be writing a lot about this trend, easy to understand language, bringing on the right people in front of you. That's why you get it, you understand it, you're ahead of it. This is a brand new industry. I know even the smartest people in finance, and those experts, many I've spoken to about my STO, they have trouble understanding. I have to sit with them for hours. And once they get it, they're excited. They want to know more. They want to invest in it. It's kind of incredible. Like, wait, you could tokenize any asset. This makes sense. I own tons of real estate, or I own commercial real estate, or art, or whatever. You're able to do that now. If you're an accredited investor and interested in learning more about Curzio Equity Owners, that's our token CEO. That's the symbol of it. You plan on launching around next month. Very excited, on schedule right now. Send me an email at frankcurzioresearch.com. And even if you're not an accredited investor, you want to learn more about this industry, because our new site is just about up and running. It's not up today. It's going to be up tomorrow, I believe. Includes educational content and also a lot of the recent stories you've seen in STOs, which are not being published out there. And it'll be incredible. It's amazing to see this industry and what's taking place that nobody's really talking about, because I think everyone's looking at the current crypto markets. When you see the things that are taking place, the investors, people leaving JP Morgan, large investment banks to start their own crypto funds that are going to invest in STOs, this trend is here. It's now, and you need to learn about it. Whether you invested or not, at least you'll be educated on it, because it is going to happen. It's happening now. It's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Right now, you're real early to the party. You know as well as I do, being early to the party like we've been with the CES for so many years, it opens the door for you to get into situations, very, very cheap prices, very early stages. That's how you make game-changing returns in the stock market, and that's how you're going to make game-changing returns with security tokens. I'm going to bring all this to you. Really great stuff. Interested in learning more about that site? Again, just for informational purposes or whatever, it's going to be a really cool site you can look at. We're going to highlight the great stories and stuff like that, educational videos. Just email me, frankcurzioresearch.com. That's frank@curzioresearch.com. So, guys, that's it for me. Thanks so much for listening. Always appreciate all of your support. I'll see you guys in 7 days. Take care.
The information presented on Wall Street Unplugged is the opinion of its hosts and guests. You should not base your investment decisions solely on this broadcast. Remember, it's your money and your responsibility. Wall Street Unplugged, produced by the Choose Yourself Podcast Network, the leader in podcasts produced to help you choose yourself.